Okay, welcome. This is my CCENT CCNA ICND1. This is Chapter 8, Configuring an Ethernet Switch, or Configuring Ethernet Switching, which is really funny because we're really looking at how to configure the switch. So the objective is to look at configuration features in common routers, as well as LAN switching configuration. Don't ask why the objective deals with common routers, and we're also looking at switching technology. Simple password security. We can do this one of two ways, either from the console or via a virtual terminal. And both allow you to get into an access mode. And once you're in that access mode, you will go to our enable or privilege mode. So you may be like in a mode that has a caret, that's a user mode. And when you do enable, your prompt will change to a pound. For example, enable, because we're at a user mode, type enable, we get to a privilege exec mode. If you type configure terminal, you change to a configure mode. Now for setting up passwords, our command is going to be enable secret or password and the password. Secret allows you to hash our password, so it's not just in the running configuration. Hostname will actually change the name to whatever you put. Now, if we're looking at if we want to set a password for our console or our VTY, both of those are classified as lines. For the console, it'll be line console 0. If it's for a VTY, it should be VTY. If we're on a switch, 0 through 15, because we allow for 16 virtual connections. So once we've done that, whether it be a console or a VTY, the commands are the same from here forward for configuring our lines with the password. And the command is password, whatever password you want, and then hit enter, and then log in. That will say when do you want this password to be set. Login. So if we do a show run, we set the host name to Emma. Enable secret, here's that hashed password. It may have skipped some of the lines so that we don't see all the interface lines, that's fine. Here we set our connection for our console 0. Here we set our VTY 0 through 4 and 5 through 15. So to configure the switch, if we want to set local authentication, we could actually set a username and password, and then for the VTY mode, say use a local account. So here we may create users. We have two users, Wendell and Chris. And then in the line VTY, you do login and local. That local will say search that local device for username and password for login. You don't have to, but that's one of the better ways. So if we are doing a basic authentication process with some type of external authentication, authorization, and accountability server, or AAA, we'd go to log into the switch. The switch will, if it's set up correctly, not log in local, but log in through a radius server. We'll then check the local AAA server, and then it will check for its username and password. And then if it's approved, it will return it to the switch, which will then allow the switch to provide a connection to PCA. So again, that way, we're going to be looking for, I want access, here's my username, here's my password. The device will get it, forward it to the radius server. The radius server will verify, and if you are authenticated and authorized to connect to the device, it will send it to the switch going, okay, allow access, and then the switch will then provide you our SSH or telnet session. So if we want to configure a switch to support inbound SSH only, how do we do that? SSH does need a key, so we need to actually set a domain name, and we need to set a key. That way, we can then say transport and then allow a specific connection. So here we did login local, we created our users, we created our domain and crypto key. It allowed us to do our bit version for our crypto key. It allowed us to do SSH version, but we're not quite done because we never up here said to transport. If we don't include the word transport, we can still telnet to this. But if we did transport SSH, then it would only allow SSH connections. So we're not quite done doing our SSH configuration. This will show you how to set up SSH, but not enforce that only SSH is usable. So if we actually want to do a SSH status, we could do a show IP SSH. Show IP SSH. It'll show us the version, the key, all of that good things. If we allowed SSH connections, if you did a show SSH, it would show you the user and the username. So we've already... Normally, if you both encrypt and set secret passwords, security is heightened. Notice if we do enable secrets, it will show you a specific number, and it will be encrypted, meaning it will not be clear text. So enable secret Fred. And we do a show run, it will show you enable secret 5 encrypted, and there's the hash mark for Fred. Other important things to do are things like our banner message of the day, our login, and maybe an exec. So execs show after the login prompt and is used to display information that should be hidden from all unauthorized users. Login shown before a login prompt, but after the message of the day banner. You use this for permanent messages such as unauthorized access. And you can actually set a message of the day type banner. And we have different ways to do different types of banners. Certain commands related to the history, show history, show size, terminal history. All of these allow us to see certain sizes and histories from our buffer. So we've already talked about the console, but we never talked about exec timeouts. How often should you wait before the time kicks you out? If you don't provide an exec timeout, then it's unlimited. And logging synchronization, if you don't set that, you might have messages interrupting while you're in the middle of configuring something. So these are two big ones that aren't often done, but are very important, especially the exec timeout. That way, if you leave a console for half an hour, it kicks you out. Or if you leave it for 10 minutes or however much you set. So next we have a virtual interface known as a switch virtual interface. Normally this is used for a internal type interface, like we'll set a interface per VLAN. There's no tangible interface, but it's a virtualized interface for us to make accessible so that outside PCs can access it. So choosing one VLAN on which to configure a switch IP address. Normally we will set a management VLAN. That way we can make all management decisions on the same VLAN. If we're doing static addresses, we can actually configure them on switches. Interface VLAN, even though we're on a switch. Then we apply just a standard IP address, just like we would on a router. Then you could provide a default gateway as well, which normally the default gateway is not done on a router. So if we're looking at a dynamic IP address for our VLAN, we could do that. We could do IP address and just put DHCP. That would allow it to make sure it knew that it was going to get its address via DHCP. Again, that's not how we configure DHCP, that's just how we say this interface will be a DHCP address interface. So if we want to verify it, we could do a show DHCP lease, and it will actually give us our information. We could do a show interface VLAN 1, and that should pull up the details for interface VLAN 1. If we do a show IP default gateway, that will show us our default gateway. A lot of show commands, so with a lot of this, you just gotta get time and practice. So if we are looking at how to configure an interface, duplex you can set, speed you can set. Normally, we're not looking at those. We're looking at interface, whatever interface you want to configure. Description, you set a description, and then you apply an IP address. If we're dealing with switch, you also give it a switch port and a VLAN, but that's more advanced for right now. So the source MAC address in a frame as it will enter a switch. The switch should be able to process the frame with the appropriate MAC address for it to build a MAC address table. Port security allows the switch to actually learn what MAC address is coming into that interface, and if it's appropriate, allow it. So static, you manually program it. Sticky, it will auto-learn a set amount of addresses. Dynamic, it allows you to be more fluid with it, and you can also set a maximum. That way, a maximum, you can tell it learn 8 addresses, and it will learn 8 addresses. On the 9th address, it's done. So if we do a configuration, you say switch port mode, access, that turns it to an access port. Switch port, port security, that turns on port security. Then if you want to manually set it, you do switch port, port security, MAC address, and you statically set the MAC address. So that's static. If we want it to be a sticky, same general steps except this third command, the MAC address will be set to sticky. If we just want to have it dynamic, you just turn it on. And lastly, if you want to set a maximum, you could just do switch port, port security, maximum amount of addresses you want it to learn. If we want to define a correct MAC address for a particular interface, we could do that. We could also then look at how the addresses are working. Is it in a secured mode? Is it up? Is it down? Is it going to shut down if there's a violation? things like that. Violation is, what if the MAC address doesn't match? And so, we have 3 modes: protect, restrict, shut down. If we get a violation, we can discard offending traffic. If we're in the protect mode, yes. If it's in a restrict mode, yes. We're in a shutdown mode, yes. Meaning, in any of these modes, it will discard offending traffic. If we want to send logs to an SNMP or a log server, in protect mode, it won't do it. In restrict or shutdown, yes. Lastly, if we disable the interface, discarding all traffic, protect and restrict will be a no, and shutdown will be a yes. And that's actually it for this slide. Thank you very much.